Yeah.
I know we don't always speak favorably of Flex, but
So
that is a great.
let's talk about
project.
that because that's the reason why you wanted to even discuss this album, right?
Mm.
So Funk Flex has been in the news twice, right?
Off and on for a while, but yeah, twice most
So
recently.
we've got Kanye the Machine is coming at him and Pete Rock is coming at him,
Mhm.
right?
Conway.
So who?
Conway.
You
You said Kanye the Machine.
it's not. I said that as the second time I've done that. Conway the Machine is coming at him,
Yeah.
and Pete Rock is coming at him.
Yeah.
So why don't we get into your thoughts first? So I spent the morning going through what I thought was the whole timeline of everything. So I think
Okay.
I'm caught up to speed.
Yeah.
But why don't you just give me? I guess do we need to run it down or not?
Can you give the rundown?
All right. So my understanding is that what started this was, so first of all, behind the scenes, Pete Rock got upset with Puff Daddy for doing the whole Chocolate Boy Wonder at one of these award shows, right?
Yeah.
So Pete Rock is on one right
He's
now.
Pete. And he's kind of been on one.
He's on one. So we'll
Yeah.
put that on the back burner. So
Right,
that's
right,
just
right,
where
right.
that is.
Yeah.
So Conway gets on his IG live or whatever, and he starts throwing shots at Funk Flex for basically calling him a gatekeeper, saying he's a weird DJ nigga, and be like, y'all need to get them off the radio. He's out of touch with rap. You need to get some of these new cats on here. He's like, I'm not dissing all the DJs, but just some of y'all weird DJ niggas. You need to get them off the airwaves. They're gatekeepers. They're saying what's good and what's not. We just need to move past that, right?
Mhm.
So people are like, whoa, Conway is throwing shots at Flex.
Mhm.
Then Flex comes back and he's like, all right, well, I'll bite. And so he goes through the list.
Mhm.
And I think Flex looks at it as like, well, you must be upset at something. So he runs through all the vouchers and all the cosigns that Conway and Griselda has and all this,
Yep.
that, and the other.
Yep.
And he's like, look, I don't need to go through the whole thing, but he's like, look, if you have this in your life and things aren't going well, it's like, I don't understand why you're upset with me. Because
Right.
I haven't stopped you getting in the way of any of these things, right?
Right.
So then there's kind of like some back and forth. And for me, well, we'll get into my thoughts later, whatever. The next thing I know is that Conway is now coming back on the airwaves at some party. He's got like this 12-minute thing. And it almost sounds like he backtracks.
Oh, I didn't hear the last one.
It almost sounds like he backtracks and he says, well, look, like I wasn't really throwing shots at you. It's not like, it's not like you stopped me from getting anything. I don't care that you're not playing my shit.
Mhm.
I care that you got on this interview with Gilly the Kid and Will something.
Okay.
And when they asked you what you thought about Griselda, you're like, yo, I fucks with them cats, but it's not really my vibe. Like I don't really get down with that shit, this,
I
that, and
never
the
heard
other.
that.
I'm reading that as like Funk's, he's not trying to diss. He's just like
At
speaking
all.
candidly.
Yeah.
Right. And Conway is like, look, you have a certain status. So when you say that, it makes
really
other
don't like
people
that.
think like it's okay not to like you, which I don't necessarily
I
agree
think
with.
that's terrible.
And so you think it's terrible from Conway or Flex?
From Conway, I think it's corny as fuck.
So,
So what you're saying is nobody can ever say they don't like something because they might mess up your money?
that's kind of the vibe I took it. And the other thing too is that Conway, it sounded like he was backtracking because it sounded like at first it's like, oh, like you coming in hot, and now you're like, well, actually I didn't mean that. What I meant was this.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, Pete Rock, like I said, he comes back into the comment section and does this little goblin thing, trying to eat up some time or whatever, throwing shots at Funk Flex to this and that and the other. And Funk is like, he's like, look, I'm genuinely heartbroken because like,
Because
you know,
snitched on CL.
you're one of my favorite DJs. You're one of my favorite producers. Like, I love you as a friend, and you've got problems. And like, I don't want to do this, but you're going to make me do this. And it sounds like I'm defending Flex now, which I never thought I would do. But then Flex starts saying, well, Pete Rock is a snitch because all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now. So I don't know. I don't just want to recap it. If do we actually want to talk about what they're saying?
Let's talk about it. So, I mean, I think I'll try to start at the beginning, right? Like, so first of all, I kind of see where both of these men are coming from in the first two rants.
I do as well.
So I agree with Conway to some degree that like the people that are kind of supposed to be gatekeepers aren't keeping any gates.
Right.
They're not making any tastes. Funkmaster Flex is a 50-year-old who is chasing after Lil Uzi Vert and all these other niggas and trying to say that he's relevant and he doesn't like stuff from his era or whatever, which I guess is fine if that's really his opinion, but it comes off as kind of clout chasey. And you know, he's somebody who it doesn't seem like he's giving other, like he's not putting on a 20-year-old DJ and saying, tell us what's popping for 20-year-olds. He's saying, I'm 50 and I'm going to tell you what's popping for 20-year-olds, which is weirdo shit to me. And then he's telling people, like, you know, he's calling Conway a bars rapper. It's like, bro, like, you're from an era where you have niggas freestyling over beats. Like, that's your era.
Yeah.
So if that's played out, you're also played out. Like that's your era. So that shit's weird to me. The Sus One thing, I think, is also interesting. So that's the second DJ that he called out by name in his rant. And that one's interesting. So he called out Sus One because he said that Sus One did an interview, a radio interview, and they asked him who his favorite rappers are, who the best people are, whatever. And he said, oh, I love Griselda. Like, you know, Griselda's my favorite. Conway's my favorite. And he's just like, okay, you're on the radio and you have all these other platforms and you never play our music or feature us in any way. So if that's your favorite shit, like, why wouldn't you support it and give it light? And I think that's an interesting point. However, now to flip to the other side, right? From both Sus One and Funkmaster Flex's perspective. And I want to say that I saw a clip where Joe Budden said something similar to this. These individuals have jobs and their job is to do their job.
Yeah.
So like I DJ'd a party yesterday. Like, I love Griselda and Conway. I played 0 Griselda and Conway songs.
You also DJ'd my wedding.
Right. I played 0 Conway and Griselda songs because that's not the time or place for that. And so while I might like that, there's a place and time for that. And sometimes it's not that person's platform. Yeah. If that person's job is to DJ at the peak time when 19-year-olds are going to be listening, they have to play what the 19-year-olds are going to want to hear. They don't have to play what they like all the time. So like, I think that like there's kind of a difference between tastemakers and people that are employed to do a job. And we have to allow the people that are employed to do a job the leeway to do the job. Now, the issue comes when people like Flex call themselves gatekeepers and call themselves tastemakers and trendsetters, and they're not setting any trends. So I think there's like kind of two different conversations there. What do you think?
I think that the beef between them is first of all, as a man, fuck it, just whatever, as a grown person, I think that if you're going to call out somebody by name and you have a legitimate beef, that is a conversation that needs to happen between two entities first.
Right.
And then if you guys have a disagreement and can be cordial, then you can actually use both of your platforms to have a conversation about it and say, how do we improve? Right. If you really care.
If you care.
I think that what ends up happening is that like, because, and I think Flex is guilty of this as well, but like, this little whole, like, because Flex even says like, oh, don't sleep on my age. I know how the socials work. I'm like, all right, you're coming off as corny to me doing that. Like, because even if Conway called you out, you actually could have reached out to Conway and be like, yo, what's good? Let's talk about this. And Flex chose not to do that.
Yeah.
He did invite people to come speak to him, but he didn't do it first. Right. And so
Flex loves that petty shit though.
That's what I'm saying. And I think that looking at how he addresses Pete Rock, it's like, okay, so Flex is keeping receipts on every single one of his friends, so that when the beef comes, he can lay all that shit out. That's not cool, bro. Like, it's not. So whatever. But that being said, though, what Conway does here, he really does sound like he's backtracking to be like, no, I didn't mean to do the beef, but this, like, is one of these things where you do sound like you're bitching.
Yeah,
you definitely sound like you're bitching, and that's never attractive, even if your point is correct. Right. Like, and I know this as someone who has bitched, even if I've been justified in my bitchiness, right? It never comes off as a good look. It just doesn't. And so it kind of comes off as petty as from Conway as well. Yeah. I think the thing for me, right, is that like, if you're going to like everybody is sensitive about their bag. Everybody is touchy about his bag.
Right.
Right. And the bottom line is that even though I'm not the biggest fan of Funkmaster Flex, like what he does now, at the end of the day, like, who am I to tell this grown man who has contributed things to hip hop, whether you like it or not? He has done these things. Someone who made one of my most formative mixtapes, right? Like, who am I to tell him, like, no, stop getting your bag, right? And so if he has to do things that I don't like, whatever, like, that's his money.
Exactly.
That's his livelihood.
Exactly.
He's going to do whatever he wants to do.
Right.
He's going to do whatever he feels he needs to do to stay relevant. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to knock him from doing that. I may not like that, but that's the game.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Now, we may not like the game, and that's fine. You and I, or myself in particular, have been bitching about the game for a while. It is what it is. I now have gotten to a place for me where I talk about, like, a lot of the music that I get, I happen to get from Spotify. One of my friends who's a lot younger than I am, he's like, oh, you let an algorithm control your taste? Guess what? I fucking like a lot of this music that Spotify is putting up on my playlist. The shit sounds good. It's music from a lot of different eras. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I like this. So I'm not going to go to Funk Flex. Like, Funk, I don't need Funk Flex to tell me what's good. I know what I like. You know? So it's one of those things too, where it's like, let's also look about like what his job is. His job is still on the radio.
Exactly.
When's the last time you listened to the radio?
I don't remember.
Like, I know some people still listen to the radio, but the radio is struggling.
It's dead.
It's struggling. Like, they're desperate. They're doing whatever they can do.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm an artist who my gripe is with them, I feel like you have other gripes, like the whole thing is like, people are still trying to figure it out. Like, I feel like it's a waste of time for you to gripe on, to have a rant about this guy who's trying to get his money from the radio. Like, look at other platforms. And there are plenty of artists, even Griselda, who said like, well, fuck the radio. We're going to do our shit. So stay in that lane or find other lanes. Like, I'm not a big fan of Griselda because, and it's not that I don't respect them, but I'm like, they don't do anything that their predecessors, their very specific predecessors, their influencers, in my opinion, didn't do better. Right? They don't offer me that much. Right?
Okay.
In fairness to what's the guy's name? Oh my God, Gibbs. In fairness to Gibbs, right? Okay. Gibbs doesn't impress me lyrically, but you are absolutely right. His flow, his breath control is fucking sick.
Yes.
Like, and when he pops up on some of these like jazzy instrumentals, like, I don't even care what he said. He just sounds good.
Yeah.
So I can respect that. I didn't respect it a few years ago, but I respect it now. Cool, right? But like, so he's at least offering me something that, you know, his predecessors didn't necessarily do. He's at least giving me something different. Conway, is it oh my God, I forget the other guys.
Oh, West Side Gun. Benny the Butcher. Look, and this is, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I forget their names because I don't regularly follow them, right? Mhm.
The things that I have heard, while it's cool, just most of the time doesn't, with the exception of a few songs here and there, they don't, especially like the volume, the quantity of product that they give me, it's so much that I'm like, I just don't need all of this.
Yeah.
Right? It works for some people. It doesn't necessarily work for me. And so I think that, like, kind of, I don't want to say be thankful that you have the status that you have. Like, I don't want to say like be thankful for your niche, because I think that sounds too disrespectful, or it sounds like it's knocking the things that they have created for themselves, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, let's be real. You're not for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And yet you still gotten to where you've gotten to. You've done these tours. You sold out these shows that Conway is talking about. Man. You rose up out of the bed that you're talking about. Kudos. Like, I feel like beefing with Flex to some extent is kind of beneath you at this point. Or at least I feel like the more productive, more healthy way for you to go about your career is to not be bothered by that. I would think. Yeah. And it's not, I think your point is right. Like, your point, what you're saying about Conway's take on Flex is true, right? It's not wrong, but it's also like, it is what it is. don't be consumed by it.
Yeah.
You know, that's just kind of I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree. And
I hate that I had to defend Flex.
Yeah.
I don't like defending
You're
Flex.
not even entirely defending Flex. I think, you're right? Like, I forget what the phrase is, but like celebrate the win, right?
Yeah.
Take the win. Like, it's like you're winning right now.
Yeah.
And so like you've got all this great stuff going on. You had a deal with Eminem, and you had one dude got a deal with Def Jam. Like, you're winning right now. And you're winning with the formula that isn't the most popular formula. Like,
it's not.
These other auto-tune kids are all copying and pasting something. Yeah. You're kind of copying and pasting something, but from a previous era. Yeah. And it doesn't
sound like anything else out right now. Like, there's a Griselda sound.
Yep.
For as much as me, 40-year-old outlaw can be like, all right, this sounds like this from back in the day. Nevertheless, right now, y'all have your own lane.
Right. And it's working.
You own that lane.
So like, celebrate the win as opposed to being like, yo, these 80% of people are fucking with me, but yo, why is that guy over there not fucking with me? It's like, you look kind of weird like doing that. You don't need to do that.
So, I mean, look, does he have a point with what Flex specifically said? I mean, like, I think that people should be allowed to just express their opinions. If he said it in a derogatory, it's weird. Like, I could see how, like, all right, maybe he said it in a derogatory term, but he also said, like, I fucks with them too.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing?
But yo, I think that, this particular, like, Flex using this opportunity to be petty, both with Pete Rock and with Conway, to me shows why, like, he's not a gatekeeper and an elder statesman, right? Like, he's somebody who should be shepherding people in and putting people on, but instead he would rather be petty and find ways to try to cut people down, whether it's like, oh, you're a 38-year-old bars rapper, you ain't shit, or oh yeah, you snitched on your man back in, like why, why are you doing that?
What I will say is, I have more tolerance for the beef with Conway. One, because he was called out by Conway. The other thing too is that, like, there's no such thing as bad press. This could actually be good for both of them. But Pete Rock, Pete Rock personally, Flex. I would think so, right? They have a personal relationship. That man has had lows. Don't kick the man while he's down, right? Like, even if he's coming to you with negativity, you've got to be the bigger man, bro.
I think that in some case, like, Flex at some point has to be the bigger person. And at some point has to say, okay, I'm a 50-year-old who has 30 years in this game that has given me so much. So how do I, like, give back? And how do I, in some cases, take the high road or, do something else? And I mean, I think just, like, the fact that he never takes the high road, he's basically like the Wendy Williams of the DJ, community. He relishes opportunities to be messy. And that's weird to me as a man, It
is weird. I mean, look, I've been defending Flex to some extent, but, like, let's just forget what you're doing as a job, right? Like, like I said, I'm not going to stop you from getting your bag, get your bag. But just as a grown person, the level of pettiness that you're displaying is not cool. Like, that's not good for your relationships. That's not good for your own personal health.
I agree.
That karma shit, whatever you want to say about it, like, at some point, that's like a negative energy that's festering in you. You don't want to, it's just, it's not healthy. It might be, just because it's healthy on social media, just because it gets you clicks and links, doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy for your own person. And at the end of the day, you should be old enough to know that is worth more than a social media like.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And if you recognize that, then at some point, I hope that you're being honest about the fact that you're kind of trolling when you don't have to. At least for your own self. At some point, you need to be just be real. But I don't know. Look, that's my thoughts. I mean, look, he's older than I am, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Who am I to tell him about anything about his person? But
Yeah. Conway, keep making dope music and keep, just focus on that.
Focus on that, exactly.
And Flex, man, like, at some point you got to grow up, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I feel you.
Anyway.